the purchase of Russian oil, where hours after US President Donald Trump's 50% tariff on New Delhi has come into effect officially. Trump's aide Navarro has labeled Russia-Ukraine conflict as Modi's war, and the Trump administration, however, has accused India of funding Russia's war machine in Ukraine through oil purchases from Moscow. Now, this seems to be a line which seems to be crossed as far as when it comes to the United States is now concerned. When it comes to accusing India directly and dragging the name of the Prime Minister itself, calling it as Modi's war. However, the conflict that has been escalating as far as when it comes to the relationship between India and US is concerned has now been strained to such a point when it comes to the energy experts who have been also slamming Donald Trump's aide Peter Navarro, where India actually, which is fact, is not profiting from Russian oil. However, this seems to be when it comes to a profiteering scheme that is now being using discounted Russian crude oil and selling refined products abroad, where itself, when it comes to the purchase of fertilizers, United States itself is one of the biggest buyers. Let's get a word from Rishabh. Now, Rishabh, a line is that has now been crossed as far as when it comes to such kind of provocations that have been used, accusing India, dragging in the name of Prime Minister, calling it as Modi's war.
Well, Amita, if we talk about the United States, and especially Mr. Navarro, there are only two possibilities here. Either Mr. Navarro does not read what exactly the documents say, or Mr. Navarro is trying to dismantle all the work that has happened in 2.5 decades between India and United States, the trust that has been built between Delhi and Washington, and how presidents after presidents and prime ministers after prime ministers in New Delhi and Washington have ensured that the two giants, India and United States, move together for future. The way Mr. Navarro is putting forward that how it's Modi's war, and by putting tariff on India, US is cutting the financial lifeline of Russia in Russia-Ukraine crisis. A, it's misplaced. B, it's unjust. And Mr. Navarro has failed to address the issues, the questions that were posed at White House, which yet has not been answered. US is buying things from Russia. Europe is the biggest and largest importer of LNG from Russia. China is the highest bidder as well as the importer of crude oil from Russia. All these are not in the gambit of tariff, while India is. So to pin down blame on India is something that is misplaced, and many experts, and not only in India but even in the United States, say that there is nothing to do with Ukraine war.
Is it just an excuse, or is it nothing to do with Ukraine, as Rishabh is pointing out? Because when it comes to the United States itself, has increased imports from Russia in the first 5 months of this year and still continues to purchase uranium. So what is now being largely believed, Meenakshi, that there is more to the story just than the purchase of Russian oil?
Well, yes, possibly. There is no doubt about that. Obviously, Rishabh was giving you a perspective into what possibly could be the motives behind these tweets. I will take you through a series of posts which have been put out by Peter Navarro, and it isn't just one post, it's a series of posts. It's literally, if I could call it that, quote-unquote, a rant. That's what he's gone on. So first he goes on to talk about how the 50% tariffs of India are now in effect, then talking about, and I'm going to, quote him verbatim, it isn't just about India's unfair trade, it's about cutting off the financial lifeline, which India has extended to Putin's war machine. And then, obviously, this is the post which we are already showing our viewers. As I said, a series of posts. It doesn't stop there. He goes on to say India continues to buy Russian weapons while demanding that US firm transfer sensitive military tech and build plants in India. Now, that's strategic freeloading. He talks about, quote-unquote, again, attacking India, accusing us of strategic freeloading. But again, as you know, Rishabh was also telling us, India has also made its stand very clear, and talking about how it is America which is indulging in hypocrisy and double standard. And as I said, look at the series of tweets. Then he goes on to attack the Biden administration, hailing Trump for confronting the issue, then going on to say India, the largest democracy, want to be treated like a strategic partner, but is not, taking the responsibility. Finally going on to say the road to peace in Ukraine runs through New Delhi. Again, once again, laying the entire responsibility on Delhi, on India, but forgetting how, America to begin with also buying fertilizers from Russia.
Well, absolutely. As far as multiple reactions that have been coming in, but let's get in a word from an expert point of view. Pathikrit is also connected with us. Pathikrit, these tariffs that aim to pressure India over its continued imports from Russian crude despite West's objections, how does it believe as far as when it comes to accusing India and dragging the name of Prime Minister directly, calling it as Modi's war?
Well, these are statements which are being made by some of these Trump's, subordinates and juniors to keep, to make Trump happy and to actually push the narrative that Trump was right. But I think most people are actually laughing at it when they say that it's Modi's war. Thank God they have not said that Modi has invaded Ukraine. So I think somewhere there is a kind of a desperation and frustration that, President Trump had made statements that BRICS, about a lot of things he has talked about BRICS negatively. And now that SCO summit is happening where Russia, China and India's head of state will be meeting, I think somewhere he is not being able to digest it. Secondly, their sheer inability to stop the Ukraine war in spite of all the big lofty statements they had made that they would do it. There was this Anchorage meeting in Alaska between the President of the United States and Russia. What happened? The war did not stop because Putin was very clear on the conditions, and it appears that the United States have absolutely no leverage to ensure that the war stops. If they are so much concerned about the death of people, they should first of all stop arming Israel for whatever is happening in Gaza. So these are statements which are being made.
Because he was boasting that he would end the war in one day, but just now we have seen how Russia has pounded when it comes to the Ukrainian capital, Kiev, Pathikrit. But when we speak of this narrative that has now been built by Peter Navarro himself, suggesting that it is American taxpayers who are suffering because India purchases oil from Russia.
See, I mean, you would see more bizarre statements coming in the next few days. If it is that, India, because of India, the American taxpayers are paying money, then I would want to know, I mean, there have been hundreds of such incidents where in foreign countries there has been incidents done by the Americans. There have been wars triggered, and the military-industrial complex made money out of it by asking the U.S. administration to buy weapons and give to a particular organization or a country's regime. And yet the narrative that they try to put up, no previous government has done that in the United States.
Because it is getting bizarre by the day. India already has made it clear that it is unjustified, unreasonable as far as when it comes to such far-fetched and bizarre statements that are coming in from the aides of President Trump, in particularly when it comes to targeting and accusing India of funding the war machine, Russia's war machine, as they have been calling it. Pratikit, I request you to stay on with us. We want your expert opinion on another angle that we are breaking for our viewers, because when we speak of these tariffs that aim to pressure India over its continuous imports of Russian crude oil, despite the objections that are coming in from the West side, now there has been a carefully nurtured relationship between India and the United States, a lot of hard work and diplomacy that has now gone into it over the last 2 decades. However, now completely seems to be unraveling under the presidency of Donald Trump for the second time. Now, as if 50% tariffs on India wasn't enough, Donald Trump's team is now taking it a step further to mount the pressure on Indian government. They now believe that Ukraine war is Modi's war. This is laughable and absurd and ridiculous. When we speak of the American president's trade advisor, Peter Navarro, who is calling Russia-Ukraine war as Modi's war, and he says that it is India which is bankrolling Russia's war machine by buying oil from them, and to hide their hypocrisy using fakery, that is also being called out when it comes to not like United States can wash their hands off the Ukraine war, claiming that they have nothing to do with it. But as Donald Trump's own admission in the past is concerned, United States is very much involved in the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. In fact, he was rather planning a trilateral between the presidents of the US, Russia, and also Ukraine. Will that now happen or never? Let's in the meantime talk about it is not India as being projected by the United States, but the country itself which is funding such wars. Let's take a look as far as when it comes to the global conflict is concerned and the influence of United States of America. The ongoing conflict Ukraine, 300 US billion military aid that has gone in from the US. So who is actually arming Ukraine? It is the United States. When we talk of Israel, another conflict that has been taking place, it's 18 billion military aid that is now coming in from the US, that it continues to arm Israel itself. And all of these announcements that are coming in from the President of the United States. So Patikrit, just coming in back to you on this, there is another, when it comes to this Donald Trump and his aide, Navarro is concerned, there are others as well. His aides continue to rather, as you've been saying, project him in a way, this narrative that is now being made to please Donald Trump. Because here is Lindsey who seems to be targeting India over the Russian oil purchase and saying that India is propping up Putin's war, where he has also attacked China and other countries as well, saying that now it is India, next could be you. So Patikrit, when we take a look as far as the tariff tussle is concerned, 50% being the maximum when it comes to Brazil and India. However, there are allegations that have been leveled on Donald Trump, or this is strategically planned, going soft on China.
Well, I think they can't afford to go hard both on India and China because, it would be disastrous for their own economy in the next 3 months when the Christmas comes in. If they put the tariffs on China, it would have had major impact on the American consumers, given the fact that they have more dependence on China for imports. So that's the reason they stopped it. Because otherwise there would have been real repercussions within United States. Secondly, Trump is still hoping for some kind of a deal with China for the soybean export from United States, which China has banned. So I think Trump is trying his best to show that he still has the edge. He controls who does what, but at the end of the day, what is happening is that he is not in control of the plot. Even when he has the worst kind of statements being made against India, you would see the American companies continue to invest in India. They are committed to the Indian market. They are committed to the Indian economy, which means that Wall Street does not believe in what White House is saying. That is one part of it. Secondly, it is not just about the amount of weapon systems they have sold only to Ukraine and Israel. By creating a fear-mongering on the issue of Iran and Russia, just look at the amount of weapon systems Trump administration has sold to Middle Eastern countries and to the countries in Eastern Europe and to NATO itself. Now he has asked NATO to increase its defense budget so that the European countries buy weapon systems from United States and give it to Ukraine. So on the issue of China, it is also very clear that they haven't been able to contain China on many fronts. They have the largest
however, Donald Trump has been claiming that he has some incredible cards to destroy China, but rather he's choosing not to use them. Patikrit, appreciate you joining us here on the broadcast. Another aide now coming across as far as when we speak of Donald Trump and his team of advisors are concerned. Meenakshi will be taking us through another statement that is now being put up by Lindsey Graham.
Well, now, Amita, we will take you through the post which has put out from the side of Lindsey Graham. It says, I'm going to quote him verbatim, India, China, Brazil and others who prop up Putin's war machine by buying cheap Russian oil. How do you feel right now that your purchases have resulted in the killing of innocent civilians, including children? India is experiencing the cost of supporting Putin. To the rest, you will soon as well. So we can see this pattern, where Trump aides and those in the Trump administration, one after the other, are attacking India. This time the attack has come on the side of Lindsey Graham. It's India, China and Brazil, all three countries on the radar. Once again, trying to lay the blame on India and other countries for quote-unquote Putin's war. End of the day, as we had been, saying from the morning, forgetting America's role. We know who's supplying, weapons to Ukraine, and also when we speak of Russian war and the Indian purchase of Russian oil, India is not the biggest oil purchaser to begin with. Again, Lindsey Graham once again taking, what Navarro had said, the series of tweets that ran only forward.
All right. As far as targeting India over Russian oil purchase, where India propping up Putin's war, this has been a bizarre allegations that is coming in from the United States of America, the key advisors to the President of the United States. Well, Rishabh, however, this claim that has now been put across, or this narrative that has now been put across, that Russian oil imports are surged ever since when we speak of the invasion of Ukraine. In a way suggesting that Russia is profiting, India is profiting because it is profit driven rather than the domestic demand that India has been saying that India is a developing economy and also having one of the largest population in the world. It is driven by market dynamics, not by politics.
Well, Amita, let's talk numbers. Russia has about 11% of global crude oil. If no one buys from Russia, there will be a deficit of 11%, and 11% is a huge margin in the global oil supply, which will further, given that the Middle Eastern countries or the West Asian countries for that matter are not ready to increase their production, and the GCC has put a cap on their production to ensure the price stability, there will be a huge deficit and the prices will start going up. And that will be a problem for the world. And it's none other than the United States themselves who had appreciated that India is stabilizing the global oil market by purchasing it from Russia, and now 4 years down the line, or for that matter 2 years down the line, United States has suddenly realized that, oh, this is something that is happening, and
not able to get Russia in its control, not able to get China under its control. Is that why India is now being directly or rather indirectly being blamed for the conflict that is happening between Russia and Ukraine? Well, that seems to be the narrative that is now being built upon by the United States of America, which is far from truth. As Rishabh continues to be with us, we have another